Alrighty, everyone, it is Friday, so that means it is time for News of the Week for December 13th, Friday the 13th, 2024. A couple things. First off, if you're wondering, Nordic, your lighting looks really weird today. Well, my ring light just broke, so that's not particularly fun. It's okay. I'm getting the other one that's at my other house. It's coming over today, so it's not a big deal. But again, I do have to make this video with half of my face being dark. So I do apologize for that. It may look a little bit weird, and it may not be appealing to you, but let's try and bear through here for just one video today. Alright, so we have a lot of trades to get into, so we're going to roll into that first. Again, there are already videos on 2 of these 3 trades that have happened. One of them is the Jacob Trouba deal. Now, while I was editing the News of the Week video last week, the Trouba deal dropped. And it was pretty annoying because I really did not have time to edit the entire video again and make it completely new and include the Trouba trade in there. So I kind of just had to roll with it, and we kind of have to roll with it here again. So the New York Rangers have acquired Urho Vakanainen, who was on a 1-year, $1.1 million deal. He had 1 point or 1 assist in 5 games played with Anaheim and a conditional 2025 4th-round pick. And the Anaheim Ducks acquired defenseman Jacob Trouba, who was on a 7-year, $8 million deal that expires next season. And he has 6 assists in 24 games played with the Rangers before going over to Anaheim. So, again, there's a video up on the channel. I'll put it in the card. I'll put the other videos for the other 2 trades up in the card as well. But this is a slam dunk. Slammed out of the park by the Rangers. They get a good third pairing option in Vakanainen if he's even their 3rd defenseman. He could even be their 7th defender, to be honest with you. But I think you get a really good option there in Vakanainen, and you get cap space. That's the most important part. They gained like $7 million, essentially, based off of this trade. And they used that later on to sign Igor Shesterkin, which we'll get into here in a little bit. But again, I think it's a great deal. Slam dunk for the Rangers. I don't really understand what Anaheim's doing. I guess they do want some veteran presence, and they want a hard-hitting defender. But I really could see if Trouba has a good campaign with the Anaheim Ducks, I could see him getting flipped to another team for future assets on a retained salary. I could see Anaheim retaining him like 50% and somebody getting Trouba for $4 million. Whether it's this trade deadline or next trade deadline, I could see that happening. So maybe they're planning on the future there, but I think right now it's a slam dunk for the New York Rangers. They win this deal 100%. Moving on to the other one, the Colorado Avalanche have acquired goaltender Mackenzie Blackwood, who is on a 2-year, $2.35 million deal that expires at the end of this season. He had a 6-9 record, a 3 goals against average, and a .911 with the San Jose Sharks before going over to Colorado. They also got Giovanni Smith, who is on a $100K deal, which expires at the end of this year as well. He had 0 points in 6 games played with the Sharks before coming to Colorado, and he had a 2027 5th-round pick. Added alongside that, going to the Avalanche, going to San Jose, is goaltender Alex Georgiev, 14% salary retained, which means he's on a $2.9 million deal that expires at the end of this season. Forward Nikolai Kovalenko, who's on a final year of his entry-level contract, and a 2026 second and a 2025 fifth. Avalanche 8-7, a 3.38 and a .874. And then for Kovalenko, 4 goals, 8 points in 28 games played with the Avalanche before going over to San Jose. So I think overall this is a great deal. I think this is a great deal for Colorado. I think this is a good deal for San Jose. Both sides get what they want. Colorado gets a goalie where they needed a goalie desperately. And again, we talked about it in the last episode of News of the Week where they got Scott Wedgwood. And they have completely changed their goaltending tandem now. They have 2 completely new goalies in there, which I thought was pretty interesting when you look in terms of it. But overall, I think it's a great trade for Colorado. For San Jose, they get Georgiev, who's expiring. I mean, it's not really that big of a deal. He's expiring. You can just let him get you 1st overall. Let him go. You really don't have to do anything. And then with Kovalenko, you get probably a good 3rd liner for this team's future. He can provide some secondary offense. He's a good penalty killer. I think he could definitely do that with San Jose. more playing time than he would otherwise with the Avalanche. But Kovalenko is one of like the Avalanche's highly touted prospects, or was when he was a prospect, because he was exciting coming out of the KHL. He put up really good numbers there. So he has the real potential to have a great campaign in the NHL. It's just going to be with San Jose and not Colorado. And the third and final trade that happened, it was a pretty minor one. It happened last Friday with Trouba. The Montreal Canadiens acquired Noel Hoffenmeyer, who was on a 1-year, $775K deal. In exchange, the Oilers acquired Jacob Perreault, who's on the last year of his 3-year entry-level deal. Hoffenmeyer had 7 points in 11 games played with Bakersfield, and then Perreault had 6 assists in 24 games played in the AHL. And actually, Jacob Perreault was playing ECHL this past season. So he was actually a later round draft choice by the Anaheim Ducks in 2020. That is not turning out to be that great. He was traded from Anaheim to Montreal and then traded from Montreal to Edmonton. So he's bounced around the league a little bit. Hoffenmeyer is more or less just a minor acquisition. I don't think he's really that big of a player. He's less just a depth defenseman for Montreal at best. More or less just an AHL player who's actually not doing that bad in the American Hockey League, though. So I guess Montreal does win that trade, but you gotta take out what you want. So yeah, those were the 3 trades that happened. Again, there are videos on 2 of the 3. The Perreault trades, like the one that I get on, because why? But I will put them in the card if you want to go see them. One thing that I did not make a video on, and this is something that I missed. Well, I didn't really miss it. I just didn't have time to make a video on it because the day everything happened, I had hockey, I had work today. But regardless, the Rangers have signed Igor Shesterkin to an 8-year, $11.5 million contract with the team. I think that this is very interesting. Shesterkin is now the highest paid goalie in NHL history, getting $1 million more than Carey Price. Again, I think it's a good deal. I understand there's some people who are like, oh, really? Because he's a goalie? I get that. I get you may not be like, yeah, I don't know. I don't really want to give a goaltender this much money because goalies, like his comparables, like are making less than 9. Like, so I understand that. But I also do think that Shesterkin has every right to request this money. He has been carrying this Rangers team the last couple of seasons. I think he 100% deserves this money. Would I give him that, like, realistically, if you look at comparables and all that? Probably not. But I think he has every right to ask this, and I think the Rangers just, they really can't say no, because if they lose him, it's not a great look. So I'm being honest. 2 entry-level contracts were also signed today. The Blue Jackets signed Luca Morelli, to a 3-year ELC. Morelli, solid player, was a draft choice as well this past draft. And then Jacob Gauthier was signed to a 2-year ELC by the Philadelphia Flyers. I have seen this guy play in the AHL and in the ECHL at points in his career. He has looked awesome. He has really turned up the pace with the Phantoms especially, and I think he even scored an overtime goal against Wilkes-Barre Scranton in the playoffs last season. So I think it's a good ad for Philly. He's a good depth piece, and you see some of the guys performing really well in the AHL down there, like Tuomala and Rizzo and who's the other guy? Richard, who was an acquisition this past offseason. So I really do think that, they're really building a good farm system up there, and Jacob Gauthier was one of the good guys that I saw added to this team. So good look there for the Flyers for sure. I like him a lot. Hopefully he gets a shot in the NHL at some point. Injuries. Not a whole lot. Trevor Zegras is out six weeks with a torn meniscus. Really unfortunate there for Zegras. It sucks. He was somebody who I said a lot in videos and on the podcast that I really did think that he was going to have a breakout season this year and really kind of rejuvenate himself after what was not a great year last year. And he's already injured again. It's not a great look. It sucks. And then today, Jake Middleton was placed in LTIR by the Minnesota Wild. So we'll see where that goes from there. But again, I think we covered Middleton earlier on this season. But Middleton, hopefully he is okay as well. And we'll see where that goes from here as well. Not a ton after that, to be honest. We got waivers up next. Waiver claims. Dakota Mermis was placed on waivers because a lot of the guys from the Leafs are returning, and he went from Toronto to Utah. So he is now part of the Utah Hockey Club as a depth defenseman. Makes a ton of sense because, listen, if you're being honest, Utah's injuries are all defenders primarily, so they need bodies on the blue line, and Mermis is going to come in there right away and probably play a good role. So yeah, we'll see how he fits in the fold there for the Utah Hockey Club. And then Alec Regula was placed on waivers by Boston and was claimed by Edmonton. So Regula, if you don't know, was a part of the Taylor Hall trade 2 years ago. Don't ask how I still know that. I don't really know either. It just popped into my head. But overall, I think that, two interesting waiver claims of two kind of depth guys. No big name players. They are just guys who, they're not terrible. They're good ads for sure. Some guys were sent down to the American Hockey League, and some guys were called up that I think are worth discussing as well. Artur Shilovs was sent down to the Abbotsford Canucks in the AHL this past week. That is because Thatcher Demko is back. He started a few days ago, I think, against Columbus, or I think he started last night against Florida, actually. So he got a shutout last night. Then that means no, he didn't start last night. He started the game before. I'm making errors. This is why I should write this stuff down. But again, going back to Shilovs, he has struggled. He has really struggled. He looked solid in the playoffs. But since then, this season's been a really bad go of things for him. So hopefully he'll go to the AHL, recuperate a little bit, and maybe he'll get another opportunity in the NHL soon if Lankinen or Demko get hurt again, or, something obviously happens. Again, you don't wish for that, but hypothetically, if that were to happen, Shilovs would be their first call-up, so maybe being in the AHL would be a good sign for them for sure. And then Chicago called up Frank Nazar today. So we knew this was going to happen because we saw Joey Anderson get placed on waivers a couple of days ago. The reason why I didn't talk about it because there's guys that get placed on waivers every single day, and if I spend a whole 5 minutes on waivers, it takes things out of other things that I could talk about. So I think for Nazar getting caught up is a great look. Again, you want youth down there in Chicago. I think that's the only way you're going to get it done. I like Nazar. He's really been doing good in Rockford in the AHL, so he is somebody who needs to stay up here with Bedard and this team because he is a part of that future, and it does make me excited because I really like Nazar. I liked him in his draft year. I liked how he was. I'm really excited to see where he goes from here in his career as well. And then, that's pretty much all the waiver stuff, to be honest with you. There really isn't a whole lot there. We have two players who have retired. I don't know what retires is. But Kevin Shattenkirk has retired yesterday. He was a 14th overall pick in 2007, played for Colorado, St. Louis, Tampa Bay, the Rangers, the Capitals, the Ducks, and the Bruins. So best of wishes to him in retirement. I always liked Shattenkirk. He was always a really good depth defender. I always would say, Philadelphia should go out and claim him because he's a solid guy. So, yeah, best of wishes to Shattenkirk in retirement. The other guy that retired, Justin Schultz. A lot of guys from my childhood are retiring. So Schultz played 745 games in the AHL with the Penguins, the Oilers, the Capitals, and the Kraken. So he was a two-time Stanley Cup champion with the team in 2016 and 2017. So best wishes to him in retirement, too. He was always a great guy that I liked, too, with Edmonton and Washington. Or more Washington. But I think that he has always been a great player in his career as well. And then we also have some breaking news. I opened my phone to talk about Justin Schultz being retired, and Travis Dermott was claimed off of waivers literally a couple minutes ago from the Minnesota Wild. So he was placed on waivers by the Oilers. Very interesting there. Ooh, and other news. Pierre Engvall and Oliver Wahlstrom are on waivers too. I love making these news videos on days where there's so much news. It literally is awesome. Yeah, last week was the Trouba deal. The week before that, I think, was David Juracek. I love it. But Engvall and Oliver Wahlstrom have been placed on waivers, and Travis Dermott was claimed by the Minnesota Wild. As well as that, too, Josh Norris was fined $2,000 as supplementary discipline under the NHL's Rule 64, diving and embellishment. That is funny because, as you guys know, there are some people out there who meme the Ottawa Senators for diving, But yeah, interesting. I didn't really look too much into it. It just happened as well. But yeah, so those are the waivers and the things that I think I really missed. Let's get into the other parts of this news video now. It always gets chaotic. It's always a chaotic news video because there's always stuff happening mid-news video. It's annoying, but it happens. The Florida Panthers are closing in on an outdoor game in the Marlins ballpark. So this broke a couple days ago. I like it. Even though it has a retractable roof, there are points in Florida where it does get pretty cold, and you could have a hockey game outdoors. And again, if it just rains or it's too hot, close the roof, even though it's just not really outdoors. But, you know, it is a little bit annoying that they do that. But again, we'll see when that happens. That may happen next season. That may happen the season afterwards. But again, you got to figure out logistics of that too, and you know all that stuff. But that's good news for Florida for sure. And I was thinking on the way home today about what jerseys they could have. I think you could put together some really nice jerseys for that series. So looking forward to that for sure. Next up is news involving a prospect not of this season. Well, actually, it is a prospect involving of this season. Michael Misa and Boston University have the framework together for him to go over and play in college next season. This is very interesting news. It is something for me that I covered in a TikTok. I put it on YouTube as well. It is interesting because you see that with this new rule for the NCAA where they're allowing CHL players to come over and play college hockey, we have seen a lot of players like get scouted and get like heavily interested in. Misa was one of them. Of the others, like Gavin McKenna, Porter Matone, those were other names that were really headlined of guys that possibly could go and play for these colleges. And it seems like Misa and BU have the framework together to make this happen, which is very interesting. It is very interesting. It makes you wonder, like, it does suck for the CHL. It does make you wonder as well, like, you know, if the CHL loses a lot of their players, it's not really it's going to happen, but still, it's not very good news for the CHL. So they got to make that more appealing for those big-name players to stay there because as opposed to, you know, living in some of those cities. Like, I'm going to be honest, no disrespect, no shade to some of those cities in Canada, but they are particularly the nicest places. I'm not going to come on here and say that all of them are bad, but some of these cities that these kids are playing in, and I've heard it from Canadian people who live in these cities too. And again, I don't want to throw shade because I've never been to these cities, as I've never been to Boston University, but I would probably say that getting an education and getting paid and being in BU and probably getting a better chance at, you know, transitioning over to the NHL rather than living in one of those cities, I'm taking the education. I understand maybe CHL players do get paid and there is an education system there. I know that, but I would probably prefer going over and playing in those big-name colleges rather than, yeah. Again, I'm not trying to throw shade at those places, but still, it's something you got to keep in mind there as well. The NHL wants the IIHF to allow players with Italian heritage to play for the country in the 2026 Olympics. This makes this fun because there are some players who may have Italian heritage but were born in Canada or born in the US or born somewhere else who, hypothetically, if they were to go play for that 2026 Olympics team, which is like a year from now, they probably wouldn't make it. The rosters are so stacked, and some of them would. I'm not saying none of them would, but there are some players with that heritage where, they wouldn't make it. They wouldn't make the team just because the team's too stacked. And hypothetically, if you let them, with their heritage, and this could apply for other countries too, not even just Italy, but, hypothetically, if you let some of those players play for Italy, it brings more competitiveness, it brings more talent, it brings more NHLers into these competitions. So I thought that was something fun to keep in mind as well. There's also been talks of a Dubai city as well. I saw today they're going to go play a game in Dubai. I saw that too. Interesting as well. Excuse me. Again, there's a lot of stuff in these news videos that I would like to cover, but I don't want them all to be 30, 40 minutes long. We had one a couple weeks ago that was 40 minutes long, and yeah, no, doesn't work. All right, let's get into the rumor mill. The rumor mill, there is not a lot here, I'm going to be honest with you guys. I only have 3 things. So let's start off with the European expansion slash affiliate league. So Darren Dreger basically came on TSN and said that the NHL is interested in the idea of expanding over to Europe or another country that isn't in the United States or in North America. I have been thinking about this for years. I have. I am a young kid. I'm only 17 years old, but this is something that I have been thinking about for years. What if hypothetically, this is my idea, what if hypothetically they had a league in the US, if they had the league in North America that they do right now, but then they expanded over and made a completely different European league? This was my idea. And the European league would play amongst each other. They wouldn't they wouldn't go over and play NHL teams. Maybe you would do that once a year. It's not a bad idea. But then, at the end of the season, each league would go through, a playoffs. They would fight in the playoffs. Whatever came out of the NHL would play the team that came out of the European League in, a World Stanley Cup game. That was my idea. That would never happen, but I think a European affiliation league might actually happen. It does seem like a decent idea. If you can make the logistics work, I think it would be a good idea. But again, when you're looking in terms of that, the NHL is only in America and Canada. If you do it in Europe, I would imagine, are you just going to have it in Finland and Sweden? I would imagine you want to do it in other countries too, because, Finland and Sweden are already big hockey countries as it is. So maybe you want to do it in, London or Germany or France or Czechia or Hungary or Latvia. I'm just trying to think of countries that I learned in history class. But again, I think that it is actually possible and it could actually work out. Again, it's something that we're going to talk about on the podcast for sure soon. But something that I did think was interesting when I was reading the headlines. It's a rumor. It's nothing really confirmed. But still, I thought it would be cool to bring up. Something involving Dylan Cozens. The Buffalo Sabres have been receiving calls about Dylan Cozens. I don't think anything amounts to it. Cozens is struggling, but I don't think they're going to trade him just yet. I get that last year was a down year for him, and he's struggling this year, but I don't see how you can really trade him. I don't think you can justify that unless you're getting another legitimate return for him. I don't think you can really justify it again. So what we're probably going to see is nothing amount to it, but it was something that I did see in the headlines that made things very interesting. And then finally, it was reported that the Ducks tried to bring Cam Fowler to the Rangers, but the Rangers preferred cap space. Again, I did wonder, if you're going to trade away Trouba like that, why not, get someone else in return while you're at it? And they decided, no, we're going to want cap space to sign Shesterkin. So I get it. I understand it totally. But it would have been nice to see Cam Fowler maybe in a different jersey. And yeah, that's your news of this week. I probably missed a couple things. Again, a lot of stuff happened mid-news video, the Travis Dermott waiver claim, Oliver Wahlstrom and Pierre Engvall being placed on waivers. That's what's broken the news today. But again, these news videos, I can't just make one and then make another one right after this. These are once a week thing. Maybe I'll do it twice a week. If you guys want to see that, let me know in the comment section down below. But that'll do it for me. Thank you guys for watching. Comment your thoughts on the news below. Be sure to like and subscribe as well if you're new, and that'll do it for me. Thank you guys for watching, and I will see you guys next Friday.